Spectro Solutions, Volume 2, read by Sebastian Brown. Chapter 4, Whip It Real Good. Alex slowly wandered the streets of London, his footsteps splashing through puddles of neon goo that glowed ominously in the dark. Big Ben loomed in the distance, its clock face obscured by a bleak, swirling mist. The city was shrouded in darkness, with only the dull streetlights and the occasional flickering sign providing any light. The usually cheerful red double-decker buses were nowhere to be seen. Only the distant wails and cackling of unseen ghosts broke the eerie silence, hinting at a presence far more unsettling than a lack of public transport. A small wisp of white drifted past a red telephone box, its mournful cry echoing in the night before it vanished into the swirling fog faster than Alex could register its presence. He shuddered, knowing that he was walking among the spirits of the dead. He passed by a group of hurried people, their footsteps muffled by the goo-slicked pavement as they rushed to get to their destination. He couldn't help but wonder where they were going and if they were aware of the dangers that lurked in the shadows. He had heard that the spirits were always watching, always waiting for their next victim. But tonight, it felt different. The gaze that fell upon him felt more sinister, more malevolent. He quickened his pace, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He knew he needed to test his invention before anything bad could happen. After what seemed like an eternity of walking, his eyes caught sight of an eerie figure floating in the distance. As he drew closer, his suspicions were confirmed. A small blue ghost, oozing and semi-transparent, with a gaping mouth and huge black eyes, stared at its reflection in a shop window. Its ethereal form seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy, leaving Alex both awed and unnerved. He could almost feel the icy tendrils of fear clutching him, squeezing the air from his lungs. Without thinking, Alex drew out his metal rope and whipped at the ghost, the cold metal cutting through the hazy air with a satisfying whoosh. The ghost let out a blood-curdling shriek, its translucent body quivering violently as the whip made contact. The spot where the metal rope struck began to shimmer and distort, rippling from the impact as if the ghost were made of liquid mercury. The ghost recoiled, its huge mouth contorting in a grotesque display of pain and fury. Alex could see a searing wound left behind by the rope, a deep gash that burned with an eerie orange light, pulsating like a heartbeat. But as the ghost gradually turned to face him, a sudden realization dawned. In his haste to test his invention, he had failed to consider what he was going to do next. "Oh, flip! Flip, flip, flip!" cried Alex as he took off running. He sprinted through the deserted streets, his heart racing with fear and adrenaline. But the enraged ghost was hot on his heels, its ghastly form trailing behind him in a flurry of supernatural goo. Each step became a treacherous struggle as Alex sank into the sticky mess thrown by the ghost. His lungs burned with each breath, and his legs felt heavy from the weight of the bulky battery pack he carried on his back. He cursed under his breath, both at the ghost that seemed intent on killing him and at himself for getting into this dangerous situation in the first place. The ghost's eerie cries echoed through the empty streets, taunting Alex as it closed in on him. With one hand, he desperately wiped the sweat off his forehead, while the other clutched his invention. He stumbled upon a narrow alleyway and quickly darted into it, the stench of decay and stale rubbish assaulting his senses. The passage was cluttered with overflowing bins, their contents spilling out onto the cracked tarmac. The darkness here was almost suffocating, broken only by a few fluorescent lights. But the ghost was relentless, hurling balls of goo at Alex as it gained on him, its dead eyes fixed on him with a chilling intensity. Just as he was about to lose hope, he spotted a low wall at the end of the alley. Without hesitation, He planted his feet on the ground and with a loud grunt, he heaved his body over the wall, arms outstretched. But the drop on the other side was a lot bigger than he had anticipated, and adrenaline couldn't defy gravity. Alex crash-landed in a tree, branches snapping like dry spaghetti as he grumbled, coming to a stop around halfway down. The ghost slowly drifted down to meet him, its form shifting and swelling as it consumed his fear, transforming it into a more monstrous shape. It pulsed with an unnatural light as it sprouted menacing sharp teeth and long claws. A blood-curdling shriek erupted from its throat, accompanied by a barrage of viscous goo that splattered across Alex's face like rain in a hurricane. He could already hear the branch cracking under his weight. He swore one last time before he fell from the tree and hit the ground with a muted thud, the cable's charge suddenly dimming. Alex blinked as he sat up, the world blurry at first. He was sprawled amidst a bed of soft earth, leaves clinging to his clothes. His head swam, and a dull ache throbbed in his back. Moonlight, pale and weak, filtered through the branches of 6 towering trees. The shadowy figures seemed to lean over him protectively, their branches forming a leafy canopy. He looked around, taking in his surroundings. He was in a park, a small haven nestled amidst the neon-drenched wasteland of the city. The air was cool and surprisingly fresh, carrying the faint scent of roses. A gravel path, its smooth surface catching the moonlight like a silver ribbon, snaked through the park, leading to a field of emerald green untouched by the city's decay. A gentle breeze rustled through the blades of grass, and for a fleeting moment, Alex felt a sense of serenity. Beyond the path, a fenced area held swings, a slide, and a climbing frame, their vibrant colors out of place against the city's bleakness. Tall black fences, despite their imposing nature, blended seamlessly with the park, as if meant to be there all along. Even a large square leaf bin tucked discreetly behind a tree seemed oddly comforting. He dragged himself up with a grunt, rubbing his sore back as he did. The brief oasis couldn't erase the reality of the situation, but it offered a moment of respite. The ghost, with its eerie blue glow and deep black eyes, slowly floated down towards him, like a sinister leaf being carried by the wind in the midst of autumn. The sight alone made him shiver, and he instinctively readied his invention, the only weapon he had to defend himself against the otherworldly creature. But as he cracked the whip towards the ghost, a sense of dread overcame him. He suddenly noticed it was no longer glowing. He watched the cable fly straight through the apparition, as if the spirit were made of nothing more than air. The whip fell limp onto the soft grass beneath the ghost, and Alex could feel the adrenaline rush through his veins, urging him to run again from this terrifying encounter. He knew he couldn't, not when the ghost was now fixed on him like a hungry dog after a bone, its vicious snarl echoing through the still air. With a sense of determination, Alex braced himself for the ghost's attack, his heart pounding in his chest as he waited for the impact. To his surprise, he felt a strange splash as a slimy substance covered his entire body. He looked down, momentarily stunned. A thick, blue goo, the same shade as the ghost, now coated him completely. Disbelief warred with terror, his gaze darting around the park, searching for the spirit. But there was nothing. A guttural growl ripped through the night air. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Panic clawed at Alex's throat. He couldn't breathe. He couldn't move. Where had the ghost gone? Suddenly, a hard shove from behind sent him sprawling onto the ground. The world spun for a moment, the goo clinging to him like a second, unwelcome skin. There he lay, defeated on the grass, feeling the cold dampness of the goo seeping through the front of his clothes. Before Alex could even begin to process his thoughts, the ghost snarled again. He rolled over and started scrambling backwards, determined to put as much distance between himself and the ghost as possible. Just as he was about to give up, he had an idea. He detached the transformer from his wristband and started banging it on the path behind him. It was already sparking, and he knew it was close to popping. He hoped the explosion would hurt the entity more than the broken rope did. If anything, it might scare the ghost away. If not, he was about to become a very crunchy chew toy. He banged the broken transformer one last time on the hard path and launched it at the spirit like a grenade. It started to glow as it got closer, and then a purple blast of light lit up the park. It zapped the ghost with a powerful surge of energy, causing it to dissipate into thin air. "Frickin' yes!" Alex cried as he let out a victorious cheer. The ghost was gone. His invention had worked. He was safe. He jumped to his feet and hurried back to his house, not sure what to do next. In the park, the dust settled, and an eerie silence enveloped the night air. The spectral explosion had sent ripples through the ethereal plane, catching the attention of one peculiar entity. A faint shimmer appeared out of the darkness. It moved with purpose, tracing the remnants of its exploded kin. It sensed the lingering presence, an energy signature that only a ghost could detect. As it hovered over the scorched grass, its form flickered, momentarily revealing a glimpse of its true appearance, a swirling mass of translucent shapes, constantly shifting and changing. It was here for answers, for understanding. A cold curiosity snaked through the entity's formless being. How had its fellow spirit been destroyed? What force could cause such a disruption? Could this be used to some kind of advantage? The questions swirled, a maelstrom within its core. It surged forward, absorbing the dissipating energy of its fallen kin. As the energy coursed through its being, it began to coalesce into a more defined shape. The air grew cold, a visible shiver running through the leaves as a dense fog rolled in, shrouding the park in a ghostly veil. Slowly, the spectral camouflage faded. In its place stood a tall, slender man in a sharp suit, his presence exuding an aura of dread. "At last," he murmured, looking down at his now solidified form. His suit was impeccably tailored, a dark contrast to his unnaturally pale skin. His face was sharp and angular, almost skeletal, with an expression that was both mesmerizing and terrifying. But it was his eyes that held the true horror. They glowed a deep, malevolent red, piercing through the darkness like embers. The man's gaze swept across the park, taking in the serene beauty of the night. He took a step forward, and the ground beneath him withered and died. Plants wilted, insects fled, and the very air recoiled from his touch. As he walked, he left behind a trail of desolation. With deliberate steps, the figure walked out of the park, disappearing into the streets of London. The moon watched on, silent witness to a dance of science and magic, as the world held its breath. Chapter 5. Don't mess with that. As the first light of dawn crept through the curtains, Alex awoke with a start, excited about his new invention. Despite the exhaustion tugging at his eyelids, excitement bubbled within him. The spectral whip lay on the table in the kitchen. its jagged surface marred by a few scorch marks from last night's escapade. He reached for his phone. It was time to share the news of his creation with Jamie.
"Morning, mate. What are you doing?"
Alex's voice crackled with enthusiasm. Jamie's voice was groggy. "I'm nursing a hangover and watching Match of the Day. What are you doing?" "You ain't gonna believe what happened to me last night," Alex said, a grin spreading across his face as he rubbed the sleep from his eyes and picked a blob of dried goo from his ear. He launched into the tale of how he and Lindsay had created the whip and the ensuing chaos of its inaugural test run. "Mate, I have got to see this for myself," Jamie replied, the excitement palpable in his voice. "Give me a couple of hours to shake off this hangover and I'm there." Alex hesitated. The memory of the whip cracking, the ghost wailing, and the narrow escape made him wince. "I don't know, I'd rather wait for Lindsay, to be honest. I was just ringing to tell you what happened, really, and I think I'm going to need her to help test it properly." But Jamie was insistent, his voice a persuasive whisper.
"Alex, if we can get a video of you whipping a ghost, we can make bank on WowTube. Come on, bro, it'll be just the boys. A little adventure. What do you say?"
"All right then," Alex conceded, his voice a murmur. "I can show you, but I need to fix it first." The promise of witnessing Alex's invention in action was apparently the perfect cure for Jamie's post-celebration migraine.
"Yeah,"
he whispered down the phone. Luckily, Lindsay had already provided Alex with several of the printed transformers, and with careful hands, he set to work. The evening rolled in, and the sun slowly dipped below the horizon as the two friends made their way through the quiet city streets. Jamie's mind was filled with a mixture of excitement and trepidation as they steadily approached the designated location for the demonstration, a run-down and dilapidated council estate. Jamie's heart began to race, but this was exactly what he had been looking for. He couldn't deny the thrill that coursed through his veins as they stepped past the rusty gates and into the crumbling complex. The estate was an architectural ensemble that consisted of 3 long, imposing blocks of flats. At its heart lay a spacious courtyard with a convenient car park seamlessly integrated. Dirt and debris covered every surface, and the eerie silence was punctuated only by the occasional creaking of an old door or gust of wind. Jamie leaned against the estate's cold, metal railings. "I've heard there's a few ghosts living around here. I can't see any." Alex looked up at the towering flats. He flashed Jamie a confident smile. "All right, Jay. You ready for a show?" "I was ready before he even got here," Jamie replied with a grin. "Show me what you've got." His phone screen lit up as he started recording. "If this thing works, I'll get it all on camera," he said, half to himself. With a swift click, Alex activated the wristband, and the rope began to glow a ghostly purple again.
"Whoa, that looks mad!"
exclaimed Jamie, staring at the whip. "Yep. Now let's see if we can find some ghosts," announced Alex with a glint in his eye. Jamie's initial excitement was now mixed with a hint of nervousness as the pair proceeded with caution, their footsteps echoing through the empty estate. Time passed without incident, and Jamie's hope of capturing something supernatural on camera began to fade. "Bro, it's been like 15 minutes of this and there's clearly no ghosts. You gonna let me have a go with that whip thing or what?" said Jamie. Alex looked back at his friend. "All right, come here then," he said as he undid the belt clip. "Okay, phone in the back pocket. Check. Now, let's tackle this mofo." "Ugh, why is it so heavy, bro?" asked Jamie as he dragged the rucksack onto his back. "And here comes the wristband. Oh yeah. Let's see what this thing can do," said Jamie, before he swung the glowing purple rope around in the air. "Yeehaw! I feel like John Wayne." "Stop swinging it around, Jay. It's not a toy.
I don't want you to break it," called Alex as he quickly ducked.
Your wiring is bloody awful, mate," said Jamie as he fiddled with the janky wiring on the circuit board.
"Jamie, can you just stop messing with it? I'm not sure it's 100% safe. Actually, give it back."
Jamie turned around and cradled the wristband like a cat with a ball of wool.
"No, get away, shut up,"
he laughed as he continued pulling at the circuit board. "I'm trying to sort out this dodgy wiring."
"Jay, stop it,"
said Alex, trying to sound as serious as possible. But Jamie was too curious to listen. He got a small electric shock and his hair stood up, making him look like a mad scientist. He quickly patted down his unruly mane, and despite the shock, he continued to mess around with the circuit board. Jamie held his breath in surprise as the whip suddenly transformed. His eyes widened as the once purple rope shimmered into a vivid, flaming emerald green. It hummed with an otherworldly energy, resonating through the damp air. Alex's jaw clenched. He had warned Jamie not to mess with it, but curiosity had won out. Now, the whip pulsed with a high-pitched frequency like a theremin in a 1950s B-movie.
"Jamie?"
Alex's voice was tight.
"What did you do?"
Jamie shrugged, feigning nonchalance.
"Hey, this looks cool.
Green's my color, right? It matches my t-shirt." Alex's gaze bore into him.
"This isn't a fashion show, Jay. It's experimental technology. We don't even know what it can do. And now it's what? Why is it making that noise?"
An emerald fire swirled around the whip, its green glow casting unnatural shadows on the cracked walls like a gamma-infused campfire.
"Alex, relax. Maybe it's just adjusting, like a chameleon."
Alex glared at Jamie.
"Oh, no, Jay, it's not adjusting."
Suddenly, two odd spirits appeared, their ethereal forms peeking through the solid brickwork of one of the blocks, like hippos peering out of a river. Their eyes, dark and hollow, bore into Jamie's soul as the air grew thick with the stench of decay. The ghostly pair slowly oozed through the wall, the white bricks absorbing their essence and turning a sickly shade of grey. The residue they left behind shone like the remnants of 1,000 glow sticks. Jamie's breath hitched as he realized that these phantoms were directing their attention at him. They studied the whip from afar, intrigued and confused, as Alex and Jamie started to back up.
"Whip him then,"
said Alex, too scared to take his eyes off the spirits. Jamie gathered his focus and swung at the ghosts. They watched curiously as the lash arced through the air, a delicate stream of color and motion. It soared, casting an eerie light in the darkness, its energy whispering secrets to the wind before it hit the ground. Jamie looked worried as he mumbled,
"Oh no."
Alex and Jamie continued backing away as Jamie tugged at the whip, coiling it back into his hands. It looked like the ghosts were trying to figure out what it was, bemused as they edged sheepishly closer.
"You got the whip, Jay?"
asked Alex, his eyes still fixed on the spirits.
Yeah, I got it, bro,"
said Jamie before Alex called out,
"All right. 1, 2, 2.5. Leg it!"
Alex and Jamie turned and ran, but the ghosts both gave chase, wailing as they did. Another ghost joined, and then another. 4 different spirits followed Alex and Jamie through the estate, like a pack of neon lions chasing a pair of middle-aged gazelles. As their feet pounded against the pavement, Alex and Jamie felt the ghost's presence growing ever closer behind them. Fear and adrenaline coursed through their veins as they desperately searched for a safe escape route.
"They want the rope,"
called Jamie, his voice barely audible over the sound of the pair's frantic footsteps.
"I friggin' told you not to mess with it. You're such a bad friend."
Alex cried, frustration and fear mixing in his voice. Jamie silently cursed himself as he ran. As always, his curiosity had gotten the better of him, and now they were both in grave danger. The weight of the backpack slowed him down and he stumbled as they ran. The ghosts were gradually gaining on them, their otherworldly moans making the pair's skin crawl. They could see the edge of the estate ahead, but it still seemed too far away, too impossible to reach in time. "They're still coming!" Jamie shouted as they burst out of the estate and skidded into the street. Alex spotted a dark alley and made a split-second decision. He grabbed Jamie by the arm and tugged him towards it. Meanwhile, Jamie fiddled with the wristband, his fingers working frantically to set right what he'd done. With a sudden flicker, the rope's glow shifted back to its original purple hue.
"Oh, yeah!"
he cried. The change seemed to invigorate him, and he surged forward with renewed energy. Alex and Jamie ran down the narrow alleyway, their feet skidding against the tarmac as they frantically searched for an escape route. Just then, they spotted a short wall at the end of the alley. Without stopping to think, they used every ounce of strength they had left to dive over the wall. As Alex took flight, he realized it was the exact same wall as the day before. He grabbed hold of a branch to save himself, but as Jamie continued to fall, he managed to twist, and with an awkward motion, lashed out at the closest spirit. The spectral whip wrapped around the ghost, and for a short moment, Jamie hung suspended in the air, like Spider-Man clinging to a web. Before he could celebrate, the other ghosts soared towards him, bursting and splashing like water balloons as they passed straight through him. Jamie's frantic movements caused the lash to loosen, and he was soon sent plummeting to the ground below. Luckily, he landed in the huge leaf bin. Unluckily, the ghosts flew straight into the bin after him.
"Oh no! Help me, Alex! I've got it in my mouth!"
Alex shuffled to the end of the branch, and as it bent, he sighed, before dropping into the bin to help his friend. The leaves rustled, and neon goo oozed from the bin as the pair struggled to escape. Alex swiftly reached for the energy transformer and managed to switch it off. The ghosts slowly exited the bin, looking confused as they floated away. Alex popped his head up. "Damn, bro. I told you I got covered in goo yesterday, and now I'm covered in goo again. And moldy old leaves as well." He rolled out of the leaf bin and onto the ground, like a teenager rolling out of bed. Jamie's head popped up from the bin like a meerkat. "Well, at least no one got hurt. That's the main thing." He smiled as he wiped the neon goo from his face and clambered out of the bin. "You look like a Christmas tree," said Jamie, chuckling as he picked a twig out of his hair. "Pass my phone. I want to see what you filmed. Did you see that?" "I don't have your phone," replied Alex. "You put it in your back pocket, remember?"
"Oh, yeah. Frick, why did I do that?"
"That's another one gone," grumbled Jamie. "Get your phone out then." "Nah, I'm done, Jay. I'm going home. Pass me the gear," said Alex.
"Come on, bro, you've got to admit that was fun at least," said Jamie as he passed over the whip and backpack.
No, it actually wasn't," said Alex as he flicked a goo-coated leaf at Jamie and began to walk home, defeated again.
"Well,"
Jamie began, but Alex was already strolling away.
"Hey, wait for me then,"
he called as he quickly followed Alex back to his house. And with that, my friends, we conclude Volume 2 of Spectro Solutions. We've only just scratched the surface of Alex, Jamie, and Lindsay's wild ride. Will they master their ghost wrangling skills? Will they leverage this extraordinary technology to catapult themselves to internet fame? These questions and more will be unraveled in Volume 3. Stay tuned for the next thrilling installment. See you then.